All right, on to politics now, and President Trump is now defending his drastic shift in tone in speeches this week. In remarks before the American Legion yesterday in Reno, Mr. Trump called for unity and healing. It was a striking departure from his speech on Tuesday night in Phoenix when he threatened to shut down the government and he attacked members of his own party.
It is time to heal the wounds that divide us and to seek a new unity based on the common values that unite us.
Now, the obstructionist Democrats would like us not to do it, but believe me, if we have to close down our government, we're building that wall.
We are not defined by the color of our skin, the figure on our paycheck.
I always hear about the elite. You know, the elite, they're elite. I went to better schools than they did. I was a better student than they were. I live in a bigger, more beautiful apartment.
We must ask ourselves who we are, what we stand for, and what together we can achieve.
And nobody wants me to talk about your other senator, who's weak on borders, weak on crime, so I won't talk about him. Nobody knows who the hell he is.
So the president defended himself on Twitter this morning, writing, quote, "The fake news is now complaining about my different types of back-to-back speeches. Well, there was Afghanistan, somber, the big rally, enthusiastic, dynamic and fun, and the American Legion, respectful and strong. Too bad the Dems have no one who can change tones." Let us bring in Margaret Brennan now, who joins me from the White House. So first off, Margaret, I have to get your reaction to the president's defense of his shift in tones. What do you make of what we're hearing? What do you make of what he had to say? And what are you hearing from your sources about what motivates these swings?
Well, I think the president likely wrote those tweets himself. The spelling error in terms of the correct there was not an issue on our graphics department side. That is an exact quote from the president. And these tweets he put out this morning, he clearly was watching the morning news and listened to, as he often does at this hour of the day, and listened to the criticism there of the swing, the drastic swing in tone and rhetoric, and the messages being sent there by the president himself in terms of what he had gotten praise for on the leadership side on Monday, but then seemed to have, earlier in the week on Afghanistan, and then seemed to undo with a very fiery speech that undermined his own legislative agenda because he was attacking many of the Republican senators whose help he needs to get that through. He threatened to shut down the government if he doesn't get taxpayer funds to pay for a border wall, a wall that he ran with a promise that American people would not have to pay for. So these points that journalists are picking up and reporting on here are because we are tracking what the president is not doing in terms of some of the promises he made, not because there's some, pickiness in tone. So he's missing the point of some of those pieces that many of the news networks have been focusing in on because of the outcry and the violence out in Phoenix. But I would say one of the more important tweets that the president sent this morning really doubles down on this fight he seems to be having, this divide between the Republican leadership and this White House is only getting wider. The president blamed Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, and the House Speaker Paul Ryan for what he says will be a mess, and that is the impending argument over the debt ceiling and possible government shutdown.
Let me actually read that tweet out so people know what we're talking about. This was another tweet, I mean, really in just the last half hour or so. He's been pretty busy this morning. I requested that Mitch M. and Paul R. tie the debt ceiling legislation into the popular VA bill, which just passed for easy approval. They didn't do it, so now we have a big deal with Dems holding them up, as usual, on debt ceiling approval. Could have been so easy, now a mess. So just explain what the president is talking about here.
So October 1st, that's the deadline by which there needs to be a new set of funds to keep the government open. So there needs to be some sort of agreement there. And because of that deadline, there are going to be an intense round of meetings when Congress gets back from their summer recess, which is what they're on right now. The president today is meeting with his legislative team to see if he can kind of break that impasse, not just on keeping the government open, but also on some of the items he would like to see passed with the new Congress when they come back. The challenge is he's really starting an argument with some of these Republicans whose help he needs, and he really needs Mitch McConnell to be the quarterback to get his legislative agenda through Capitol Hill. So it's the debt ceiling and that deadline that's on the calendar that the president's referencing, saying yesterday he signed a bill that is supposed to make it easier and streamline and make it faster for veterans to get basically ahead in line to get health care services and the things that they are owed by the American people, things they are promised by the American people for having served in the military. He said, you know, if we had just attached the debt ceiling to that bill, we wouldn't be facing this impending deadline. And he says, because of that refusal, that it is the Republican leadership's fault that there will now be this bigger, more consequential argument dealing with the debt ceiling in and of itself. So the president's meeting with his budget director today, Mick Mulvaney, as well, to look at some of those numbers and to talk through that issue, see if they can break this impasse.
Very interesting. Margaret Brennan at the White House. Thanks a lot, Margaret.